This is the 2022 Jeep Wrangler 4xe, and it is my Jeep Wrangler 4xe. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about why I got this car and why I got rid of my Dodge Challenger, which I loved so much, but also talk about some of the unique things about the 4xe, because maybe not everybody knows all about this car, and of course, go for a drive. Let's go. So, first and foremost, looking at the front here, you can see something that is a big differentiator between that and other Jeep models. That is, of course, the blue tow hooks. It wasn't always available in the Sahara trim for the 21 model year when this vehicle debuted, but for 2022, you can actually see they have put the blue tow hooks on this trim. Coming along to the side here, you can also see this is similar for all Jeep models from the JL, but the LED running lights and accent lights on the side of the fender there just look really, really sharp. But what I really like about this 4xe is, of course, the wheels. I love that they're painted black, and actually they're wider than the standard Sahara models at a 275 millimeter, which is just aids in things like ride comfort, quality, and also just looks really nice. Coming along to the side here, just one little thing that you might notice that differentiates it as well, besides the blue tow hooks, is of course the blue lettering. You can kind of see it here in the behind the Jeep logo, which just looks really sharp. Coming along to the side here, since this is a Sahara, you have things like the running boards, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Coming along to the back here, you'll also see what I really like is the LED tail lights here, which just look really cool, especially when you look at them, they're all lit up. I just think it looks really cool. On the top here, you see this is the hardtop version, just in the black plastic. There is an option for the painted version, but I didn't opt for that. As you can see here, still, of course, have the baseline license plate because that's just who we are. Also, you can see here is the 4xe, not 4xe. I know there's a lot, I mean, it doesn't really matter necessarily, but 4xe is what they formally call it. Coming along to the side here, you also find cool little accents like a blue Willys logo there on the edge of the rim. And overall, just from an outside, just looks really, really sharp, especially in black. And the last thing, and really the big telltale sign, besides maybe the trail-rated blue badge, is of course the charge port. It's actually made of metal, which is really cool, really high quality. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But why don't we climb on inside? You can see the awesome brown interior that we went with here. Fire this thing up and hit the road. All right, setting off in the 2022 Jeep Wrangler 4xe, full throttle acceleration. Here we go. Okay. Wow. All right. Holy snap. That is awesome, actually. That's probably my first talking point with the Wrangler 4xe is the acceleration. I mean, combined with the 2-liter turbocharged engine and the 17 kilowatt hour battery that sits just right behind the rear seats there, 375 horsepower and 470 foot-pounds of torque, which, I mean, is the second most powerful vehicle that the Wrangler, the engine option that the Wrangler has, behind the 392, which is absolutely insane. But what's nice about that is that you get that instant torque from the electric powertrain, which is actually pretty cool. It's all built into the transmission, and that's some stuff for engineering explain for them to do, or Alex on Autos, whoever it may be. But overall, as the way it drives, I mean, it's very, very different from any vehicles I've ever owned. And that also flows into the next thing, is like, why did I get rid of my Challenger? Because I talked about in my video why I liked it so much. I didn't end up producing much content on it just because of the world that we live in, and being busy and changing jobs and doing all these different things. But to kind of sum that car up, I mean, that was fantastic. I made a brief post about it on my Instagram, about the way it handled, the performance of it, how much of an eye-opener it was for me as getting into performance cars, and I truly enjoyed that car a lot. I put 6,000 miles on it in a few months, and that's living in northern Michigan, mind you, where it's not perfect driving season year-round. And I really did enjoy it. It just ticked so many boxes. But what led me to a Jeep Wrangler and a hybrid, going from a 6.4 liter naturally aspirated V8 to a 2 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with a giant battery strapped behind the seat. And it really just came down to a new experience. I've never owned an SUV. I've never owned a Jeep. Obviously, it's having an SUV, but I've never had anything like that. I mean, the Dodge was the first American car I'd ever had, an American branded car. You can say maybe the Passat, like built in America, but I've never known anything like it. And my wife and I were shopping around with the Bronco. I do really like the Bronco. I think the Bronco, of course, having the independent front suspension, being obviously a new design, kind of a re-engineered and potentially better Wrangler than the Wrangler is. I was really interested in that. But unfortunately, due to the crazy climate of the world that we're in, it was very difficult to obtain one. My wife and I went and talked to the local Ford dealer and said, hey, we're interested in Bronco, but they told us, a year, could be more. And that's just, that just didn't work. And I ended up getting an offer for the car I could not refuse, which was just insanely crazy. And so my wife and I went to our local Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram store here in town, and we're poking around, and we wanted to look at the Wrangler, and we're like, well, it'd be kind of fun, right? We kind of thought of it more of as a joke. That's what my wife and I will say is, I'm not trying to offend any Jeep people out there, but it really just, we kind of always made jokes about it, and so it was really fun to actually check out the 4xe. Learn more about its powertrain and all the amazing benefits that having a plug-in hybrid has, and then we ended up actually going with it. We spec'd everything out. Of course, the really cool brown seats was my wife's touch there. I thought that looked great, and we actually got the car in about 2 weeks from when we ordered it, which was absolutely insane. I know folks that maybe watch this video in the future and you'll have no idea what I'm talking about with a vehicle showing up quickly after you ordered them, because why wouldn't you just get it at the dealer? But they just didn't have them because the car shortage. But we ended up really, really liking this thing, and that's where I'm going to talk about next is kind of the impressions. Never owned an SUV, never owned a vehicle with an automatic, especially like my primary daily driver. I've always just had manual, which I thought was going to be a big deal, but we'll say more about that in a sec. And of course, hybridization. That's just a very different departure from your quote-unquote car enthusiast with their big loud exhausts and their manual transmissions, whatever it is. And I have come to say, as someone who's experienced lots of great cars on this channel as well as owned personally, I really, really do like this car a lot. It caters to just so many cool and interesting things that I like about driving that it just excited me. Folks always talk about in Jeeps is the steering. Yes, the steering is not precise. I mean, you quite literally, you have a better luck just churning butter. Basically that's the steering feel. So maybe the Amish are onto something, but it's fine. I've grown to actually really like it. You kind of have to play with the wheel a little bit, and the car kind of bobs side to side, especially if you hit bumps. It's a little unsettled in that way, but the car is just exciting. It kind of keeps you on your toes, and that's what I'm always looking for as a vehicle that's engaging in its own unique way. My Passat with its manual transmission paired with a diesel, which is very cool, kind of European-esque, and of course being VW. The Challenger being loud, obnoxious, big, powerful V8, rear-wheel drive, lots of wheel spin. I mean, that was just insane. And then I get this. It's driving around in electric mode when I have the battery all charged up, and when I've got everything working, it's just so different. But I've really enjoyed it a lot. I really, truly have. And we're going over a train track here, and you may be able to see the steering wheel kind of rip out of my hands a little bit, which could be a little concerning for folks that aren't familiar with what it's like to drive a big truck or SUV that's a body on frame with this very, very loose steering. The recirculating ball steering, we'll see if they improve that down the road. I think it's kind of entertaining, but I still have to drive the Bronco just to see if it's if I prefer it more than whatever. Overall though, interior really, really nice. I love all the metal accents in this particular version being the Sahara, got the leather stitching, the 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen. Being the Sahara, of course, it has things, it's got the Alpine stereo with the 4xe, kind of comes fully loaded. So there's tons of great options all kind of paired together into this trim level that just make it feel a little bit more luxurious. Of course, I love leather seats because I've got a dog who sheds, and I don't like cleaning that all the time as much as I enjoy cleaning cars. It can be a little frustrating at times, but in general, this car has been great. Do I miss my Challenger? Yes, a little bit, but I miss every car that I get rid of for a brief time because I've, of course, had great experiences and great memories with that. I mean, I love when I'd be driving it around and folks would get all excited because, hey, look, that's a wide body. Oh, and people think it would be a Hellcat. It's not a Hellcat, it's a Scat Pack. I understand. But this Jeep has been really, really fun. My wife and I both love driving it. That's the other thing too, is my wife just never really she liked driving the Challenger, but it just, it's very intimidating. If you don't know a lot about cars, you don't really experience that level of performance. It's a very intimidating car, especially in the poor climate that we have here in northern Michigan. And so the Jeep just ticked a lot of boxes that I have really come to enjoy it. The automatic transmission, probably some of the best in the business. The ZF 8-speed, really, really, really good. I mean, the shifts are incredible. They're really fast and responsive. The transmission's smart, and it can just get everything done very seamlessly. So I definitely really enjoy that a lot. But talking a little bit more about the transmission, and related to how this whole performance works, is that there is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, as I mentioned earlier, and then the battery. It's not set up in the way that it has electric motors mounted at each wheel or the axles or something. It's actually built into the transmission, so you can actually see that there is a electric motor assembly built into that transmission. And then there's also an accessory drive that hangs out at the front of the engine that of course assists in that whole stop-start technology stuff, which is really cool. Combined, as I said, 375 horsepower, 470 foot-pounds of torque. So in some respects, I've seen actually news articles, some of the articles post that the 0 to 60s, in the 5-second range, which is just insanity. I mean, the fact that a Jeep can perform like that, and it's not the 392, it's just a 2-liter 4-cylinder with a battery attached. It's not a light car either, about 5,400 pounds or so, give or take. And it's, once again, it's not a small car by any means, but I mean, it goes. It's quick. And since you have the all-wheel drive, the I guess you could say selectable all-wheel drive, it is a quick car in any condition, which I really like because the roads here are never really that great anyway. So I like that I can get on it every once in a while and just enjoy it. Of course, not all things about a Jeep Wrangler are great. I'm always here to share my insights and my experiences. I've put about 600 miles on the car, and once again, it's been very good, but there are some few things. One being, of course, the steering can be a little dodgy, a little weird at times because you're not really sure where the wheels are, especially if you can see me turning it right now and literally nothing is happening. Nothing at all. The car is just going forward and I'm just turning the wheel. Also, being a live axle front and rear, it can be a little unsettled over bumps. Michigan does not have the greatest roads, and when you hit a bump, it can get a little bit choppy, which, it can be something. So that's something you just get used to, though. It's overall very comfortable. It just can be a little unsettling. Also, the wind noise. Of course, this vehicle has the aerodynamics of a filing cabinet, so I really don't expect it to have a great flow of air over it. But you definitely can tell at around 60 miles an hour, even though this does have the hard top, I don't have the little liners in there that make it a little quieter, but I mean, it's still the hard top, and it can get a little whistly, a little whiny in here, and it's not perfect, but it's a Jeep Wrangler, so you can, of course, make exceptions because you have to take all the panels off. You can take all the panels off and the doors off, so I don't expect it to be super refined, but I'm just sharing that because it's not going to be the quietest thing that you drive. Also, another thing too, and for someone like me who is a little taller, trying to figure out the back door situation. Getting the rear door open, especially for my dog, like the door doesn't open as much as I would think it would. So it can sometimes make it a little tricky for access, and the opening isn't as big. It's tall, but it's not very wide, and you have that fender right there, and you don't want to, start putting pressure on the fender by like leaning on it or something. So I always found that to be a little weird as well. Otherwise, though, it does a great job. I mean, for many of you have probably watched Jeep Wrangler videos. I highly, highly doubt this is the only one you've ever seen, so you probably know a little bit more about it. But in terms of the 4xe, I love the powertrain. I love how, since the vehicle is heavier, the ride is a bit more subdued for other Wranglers. Of course, I love looking out over the narrow windshield and the short dashboard and the long hood. It really does make you feel a bit more of the king of the road sensation, and it's fun. It really is fun. Of course, what's nice about what we optioned into ours is heated seats, heated steering wheel. Definitely recommend anyone to do that if you have a colder climate. And overall, though, seriously, I've really, really enjoyed this car. Do I want a manual? Maybe. I've heard mixed opinions on the manual. I've heard the automatic's kind of the way to go, and I can see why. But if you guys do want to see more content on this vehicle, I would be more than happy to do that. And hope you'll have a fantastic rest of your day. I'm just stuck here in traffic, so why don't we sign off with that? Take care, everyone. Stay awesome.